Yo, what is up guys, Grim here, and today we're going to be going over my Synthesis League start with a bit of a recap here. So to begin with, I want to kind of go over my initial plans and how that turned out, and then I'm going to talk about what actually happened, and then we're going to go into a few things about the Synthesis League. So in terms of Synthesis, just to be brief, I haven't completely worked it out yet. A lot of people are saying it's kind of bad and that it doesn't have a lot of rewards. I do agree to some extent that the rewards are a little weak on the surface level, but I will say that I do think it has a lot of potential once it's figured out and once everyone knows exactly how to use it and abuse it. My one criticism is, though, that it requires a metric ton of memory fragments to get any meaningful currency out of the system, for me at least, in my experience. So we're going to talk about that towards the end, but to begin with, we're going to go over kind of how the league start went. So it's currently at the end of day 3 or 4, I'm not really sure, but we've had about 4 days of PoE action, and in that 4 days we have achieved quite a lot. We got through the Atlas on day 1 and 2, and then I personally set out to do a tier 16 solo strategy this league. So I'm going to talk about quickly the plan and how it turned out there. So initially I planned to do a kind of group-based Atlas progression where I buy some maps, some other people buy the maps, and we share the portals around. That worked out pretty well, and we got the Atlas done. And then I also managed to get the all the memory fragments and Red Elder down by about, I think I had Red Elder killed on day 3. So I had my Elder Orb, so that was yesterday. And then I eldered up a true favorite, Underground Sea. However, Underground Sea was quite a challenge solo with very minimal gear on a tornado shot character. Even going full damage, I had a lot of trouble with that boss, so I decided to change gears and go in for the old arcade. So I'm going to swap into game here and show you guys kind of what I'm working with now, and we'll kind of go over it from there. So when I decided to swap to arcade, I did it for the pure reason that the boss is way easier. So on my build, I could handle the map mobs, I just couldn't handle that 2-phase cold damage city boss. So after swapping to arcade, I noticed a lot better results. I was able to solo the maps and it was pretty good. Now, another reason I swapped to arcade is because of the prophecy, the Dreamer's Dream. I'm not sure if I have any here, but in my testing prior to this league's release, what I found out is that to sustain tier 16 maps, what you really need to do is focus on A, killing the boss, B, using as many prophecies as you can, specifically the Dreamer's Dream, Tempests, Plagues, and anything else you can get on there, like Masters, like Einhar, Zana, all that kind of stuff. And with everything on there, I was able to sustain T16 arcades. A lot of the maps were dropping in the map, and a lot of them were from the boss and the prophecy, the Dreamer's Dream. So I highly recommend, if you're trying to do T16s, you need to have that thing up all the time and be chiseling, alking, valing, and if you can afford it, use Harbinger on the map as well. And obviously sacrificial fragments are very important, and you will be able to sustain those T16s and over sustain a little bit as well, and then sell all of the backlog of T15s, 14s, and all that kind of stuff. And what that allowed me to do is pay for all the gear that I am wearing now. Also mixed in, I was doing a bit of chaos recipe, especially early on, and I was just using the good old 3-tab strategy here, where you just mass up a lot of items and then you sell them all at once to the vendor and get 40 or 50 C out of it that way. And that funded a lot of my gear, and we're sitting in a pretty good position here. The next item I will be going for is the Tornado Shot Helmet, which is, as always, a very big upgrade. Got our double inspired learning here, and it is of note that it does still work. It does reach this node here, so you can still do the double inspired learning strategy. So that's all with my character and my mapping strategy initially, and how I earn my currency up until this point. So what I realized, though, once I got into tier 16 maps and I was farming away, is that maps, the T16 maps weren't the best for synthesis. And I'm here to play the new league. I don't want to just play what I've already played. I want to play with the new mechanic. I'm not really too fussed about making currency the old-fashioned way. I want to really make currency with the new stuff and really push it to its limit. We all know that you can farm T16 maps or divination cards or anything like that and make a ton of currency. Let's see what we've got for the new stuff. So I decided to go off of the T16 maps and onto something a little more interesting, which was 100% turbo farming the synthesis mechanic. And the best map to do that is by far City Square. Now, City Square also does make quite a bit of passive income through the sacrificial fragments, through having 3 bosses, and just being a nice, fast map to run. And it also has the benefit of having 4 white sections available to it, although I have not yet completed the Guardians and Uber Elder. I will get around to doing that. And also the permanent Elder influence is very easy to sustain in this position. I haven't had influence go off City Square even once, and I've run close to 100 of them now, so you will be able to sustain that infinitely for your synthesis purposes. So now that we know what map I'm running and where we're up to now, I did have also, I am making the transition currently into Magic Find gear, and the reason for that is because of synthesis, obviously. A lot of the global modifiers add a lot more monsters to the map, but not only that, they add quantity to those monsters. So we can see here, increased quantity of items dropped by synthesis monsters by 500%. So it's very important to realize that I'm in this to make synthesis work. I want to make this thing good. So what that will involve is trying to make the best of what GG has given with us, and a lot of those are increased quantity modifiers. Like you can see a lot of them scattered around the place as well. Rarity over here, pack size over there, all that kind of stuff. So that's why I'm swapping to the Magic Find. It's not necessarily the best way to make money. I still believe T16s are the best, but I want to make the best of synthesis, and that involves getting maximum rarity, maximum quantity, and doing some magic with global modifiers, which we'll talk about in just a second here. So that's why I'm doing City Square. Just a little token statement as well is, and why I think T16s aren't the best for synthesis, and that is purely from the fact that you need hundreds of these fragments, these memory fragments, like literally hundreds of them, to get a really juiced up chain of good islands to run. So I would much rather run 40-second to a minute city squares than T16s, which take 2 or 3 minutes, and I have to go and buy supplies for them, like prophecies, fragments, all the stuff we talked about before. It was taking me like ages to be able to actually get it because I can't buy bulk supplies for those T16s. So I swapped over to this, and that is why. You will make far more money in T16s if you want to do that, but synthesis equals low maps, for me at least in this case. So moving on, let's talk a bit about synthesis and what happened. How did it go? So initially I tried out a lot of different strategies. I watched the Ziggy D video like everyone else did, and I learned quite a bit. So I set out to make my first long memory chain. So what does that mean? So a memory chain is basically just a big snake of connecting islands, and what you do this for is to make a big permanent one here, and then you're going to go off in other directions and acquire what's called global memory modifiers, and that's these ones here, the pink islands. So that was my plan. Initially, I just got 10 islands and I just slapped them together, and off I went. I made a 10 long snake, and then I stacked up, I think it was 15 modifiers on it, and that's where I made my first mistake, and that's what you guys need to learn from. And that was that I was using durability of like mixed amounts. So I was using some 3 durability pieces, some 2 durability pieces. And what that means is when you go to run that chain, some of the islands will be breaking apart and some of them will be whole. And that is really, really bad for farming, because the ones that are breaking apart, if you want to try and farm them, you have to risk breaking that island and then having to put in a new piece. And if you don't have that piece, then you lose all the islands that you just ran. And it's really just a complete disaster. So the first tip I have for you guys is to place items of consistent durability, and I would recommend getting 3 durability on all the items. As you can see here, I've run this snake to establish it down here, and then you can see all of these have 2. So when I run this again after I've finished getting all the modifiers I want, I'll get to run all of these islands without a worry in the world. They won't be decaying or collapsing, and then I'll get another run through of them which won't be anywhere near as good while they're falling apart, and I kind of just skim through them, try and get all the stuff I can, and then get to the end that way. I think you want that first round of just pure farming, clear everything in the island with all that juice that you've got there, and then you can move on. So next up, I want to talk about the, I'll talk about what went wrong. Yeah, so that all fell apart, and I actually had to delete all of the memory fragments on my whole entire memory board. So that was pretty brutal. I lost probably like 50 or 60 fragments that way, and that was a big time backwards. So anyway, after that, I moved on to the strategy that I'm kind of looking at now. I've learned that there's a quota of 40 memory fragments total that you can place. So with that in mind, so currently I have 10 here and 10 here. These are the kind of things that I'm trying to build modifiers on with the chains and the global modifiers. And then I have 20 pieces to place around the map. So you can see here, I've kind of gone up around here and tried to get stuff up here, and I might go over here as well to get these memory modifiers up here. So that's what you want to be doing, and use that quota to your advantage. So you want to have those 20 placed to build modifiers on it. So when you get like to 10, 15, 20 modifiers, you can go run 20 islands and then run 20 again. So that's 40 islands with max mods on them, and that's where you'll be making your money. So that's that. The next thing I learned is that corner pieces are garbage for the most part. You really don't want to be picking up too many of these corner pieces. They're just very brittle and hard to place on the memory atlas. We're not going to go too much into strategy here, but a lot of the time with the durability, like I talked about earlier, and the corner pieces, you actually want to ditch these by activating them in the memory nexus. You can go in there, you can activate them, and then you can immediately delete them. Look, I'll show you here. You can delete this one here. Like, you can just activate it, delete it, activate it, delete it. So if I put this one down here and went over and click this, I could activate it and then just boom, get rid of it, and that would be out of my inventory. So if you find you have a lot of these edge pieces and you can't do anything with them, just do that. Just get rid of them, all of them, and then go get some more. Additionally, if you want, when you're running the memories in the maps and you notice it's a 2 memory amplifier kind of thing, it's a 0 out of 2, those will be the corner pieces or a straight piece. So you can just choose not to add them to your inventory if you so desire. So that's the next tip. This video is getting kind of long, so I'll try and wrap it up here if I can. But the next thing I want to talk about is that decaying memories, for the most part, are fairly worthless. So I'm going to explain why this is the case. So let's say I wanted to go all the way up here to these global memories up here, and I have a piece to do that. So I can put that down here. Let's say I have another piece to go up here, and I run all of these memories, and then I finally arrive at these global modifiers. So when I get there, what I'm going to realize is that I don't have any of these memories left to connect back to the memory nexus, and by extension my massive chains, which I want to buff up. And the way global memories actually work is that they need to be connected to the memories that you want to buff. And because I just lost that massive chain, the effect will not continue down and buff my things. So as a result, all of these blinking tiles here, like, it might look great, cool, I've got this path, but actually these are all worthless and are only good for getting to the boss tiles and loot tiles if you want to go down that route. For every other purpose, like building global memory chains, they're actually worthless. So I'll actually go ahead and delete all these because they're actually of no use to me when trying to build my memory chain. And then that'll actually give you a bit of a clearer look at what you've got to work with, and will clear up a lot of space on your memory kind of chart, I suppose. So that's going to be all I have for you guys on the memory nexus right now. I'm obviously still in the process of learning it. There's a lot of bugs. I would recommend, when you're running the memories, just do the memories. Don't go out and trade or anything like that. Don't teleport around with the blue button. Just do your memory nexus, and then when you're done, then go out, because it will break a lot of the time. And make sure that you understand that when you're in a decaying zone, it will decay after you complete it, and if there's other things connected to that, you will no longer have access to those. Like, for example, there was a boss node here connected to these two. I did the boss node first, and then I was no longer able to access these two nodes here. So yeah, it's a lot to learn. It's very complicated, but I think the rewards are there, and I will talk about the rewards and my results of building these massive chains in another video. So that's going to be my league start, guys, and a little bit of an overview on synthesis. There's a lot to talk about, there's a lot to learn, but that's going to be kind of my basic rundown. I'll see you guys in the next video, which should be pretty soon because I'm going ham on this thing now. But yeah, that's all I got for now. Hopefully you guys enjoyed, and cheers.